Right, same colour bishops and the use of zugzwang as a powerful tool to win same coloured bishop endgames in positions where you've sort of got a massive advantage and you're trying to realise it. So we all know that in same coloured bishop endgames, we want to fix our opponent's pawns on the same colour as the bishops, and we want to ideally fix our own pawns on the opposite colour to the bishops. So this is an extreme position here, where the d5, f5 and h5 pawn are all targets, and all black can do is move their bishop around and defend them as we attack them. So straight away the f3 and the f7 squares correspond. Okay, they are corresponding squares, and you can spend some time messing around trying to work out what all the corresponding squares are. But I came up with a plan to win this, rather than just sort of moving my bishop around randomly, which I'm sure would probably work if both sides were into time trouble. There's some sort of triangulation that needs doing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be put into a formal plan. It took me a good 10 or 15 minutes to work out a winning plan, and so if I didn't have that time on the in an actual over-the-board match, I guess I would just have to revert to plan B of just sort of randomly moving my bishop around until, attacking all the pawns in different ways and just trying some triangulation here and there and not even really thinking about what it's doing, just sort of attacking. Because if your opponent's down to time trouble, they're probably going to do the same. It's pretty clear that the king is out of commission. If the black king goes left, we come in. If it goes right, we come into c5. And it's not like, usually the king goes one way, we go the other. And then there's a bit of a counter-attack that can happen elsewhere. But here there's nothing. Black has absolutely nothing. So it's utterly pointless, black moving their king anywhere. They've just got to move their bishop around. If we can get this position with black to move, we've won. Sorry, I might have already said that, but that's what we're looking for. So here's my plan. I'm going to bring my bishop to this diagonal here. Okay, there's a reason I want it on that diagonal here, and it's to do with the amount of freedom I've got on that diagonal and the amount of freedom black hasn't got. So I'll bring my bishop back to d1. e2 would have been just as good, and then I'm going to put it onto c2. Okay, so Stockfish is defended there that way, bishop g6, but I think we should also talk about what would have happened if Stockfish had defended that way onto d7. Okay, now if Stockfish did that, I would play bishop d3, and I'm still attacking the f5 pawn, so the bishop has to stay. I has to go to c8 or e6. If it goes to c8, I would come back to e2, and black can't defend the h5 pawn. If it comes to e6, I'm still going to come to e2 and attack the h5 pawn. And when the black bishop moves back to defend h5, I come into f3. Okay, so that's probably why Stockfish has chosen bishop g6. Now what's so good about this diagonal? Well, I now have 3 squares I can use, and black only has 2. Okay, so the black bishop just has to go back and forth now between g7, g6 and h7. And that means I can choose any combination I like. Okay, I could have this position with white to move. I could have my bishop on b1 and the black bishop on g6 with white to move, black to move. I get to choose that. And what I'm going to choose is I want the black bishop on h7 with the white bishop on c2, and it's white to move. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. Why do I want that? Well, first of all, let's just achieve that. I'll get that, and then I'll explain why I want it. So bishop b1, bishop d3, it doesn't matter. Just one of those two moves. Bishop to d3, bishop back to g6, obviously, and then bishop c2, and then the bishop has to go to h7. So that was a triangulation. Okay, it was actually part of a formal plan I made, but on an actual day of match day, you might just chuck in a bit of triangulation without really thinking too much about why you're doing it, and it'll probably just work by accident. Nice though to think about it and get it to work on purpose. Okay, so why do I want my bishop on c2 and the black bishop on h7? Well, I worked out that I can then come here to b3, attacking the d5 pawn, and the black bishop is absolutely forced to go to g8. Okay. Because what I'm then going to do is come to d1. So if I'd gone to d1 there in the last move, black could have defended on g6, and I've just got nowhere, basically. Because I want to engineer the f3, f7 corresponding squares. I've got 3 squares I can use. Black's got 3 squares he can use. So that's just going to get me nowhere. Okay, so that's why I didn't do it on the last move. But now when I bring my bishop back to d1, black has to put their bishop on f7 to defend h5. And we're done. One of the pawns has to drop, and now, I mean, you could just go around winning the other pawns, to be honest. It's, I think it doesn't that pawn fall straight away. You've got to be a bit careful not to get your bishop trapped. Careful. Can I take on a6? I think I probably can. Can I take on a6? Or does bishop... yeah, I can take on a6, can I? Because bishop e8, I can play king c5. King b6, I can play bishop back to c8. So it's just I can just nab another pawn there. You've got to be careful. I think I have been careful. Am I about to get my bishop trapped? I do hope not. It's fine. So that's another pawn gone. I guess the black king comes back to d6, and I don't think much more thought needs to go into it now, does it? Let's have a look. Which square corresponds to... See, now I don't have a plan. I've just won 2 pawns, and I'm just assuming that... See, I don't know what just happened there. I don't know what happened. I didn't think about it, but yeah, we can see that it's gone. So that was I sort of did do plan B in the end, where I just sort of stumbled upon the corresponding squares. Okay, so let's stop doing this now. That's that position done. Right, here's another one that I've got ready set up to play against Stockfish on level 8. And it's again clear that white has an absolutely stonking advantage. The white king is once again, the black king is once again out of commission. If it goes that way, I'm coming into d5. If it goes this way, I'm coming in to b5. So all black can do is move their bishop around and defend these pawns, which are horribly placed, fixed on dark squares. So white has a massive advantage. Straight away, though, you can see these 2 squares correspond. Okay. And if I come back to d2, we can see that the d2 and the d8 squares correspond. So, you think, how do you get out of this then? Again, on this one, I spent a good 10 minutes on it, and I came up with a winning plan. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my bishop on the f2 square, basically. I'm going to put my bishop on the f2. And Stockfish is probably going to go back to d8, yeah. So d8's the most difficult one to deal with when the bishop's on f2. I'll go through and explain everything. What I'm going to try and do, actually, is trick Stockfish into not going back to d8. Let's try it. I don't think I'm going to be able to. So I'll just try it. g1, e3. I think it's going to go bishop f6. Yeah, okay. And then back to d8. Yeah, okay, so what's so good about the d8 square there when my bishop's on f2? It's actually going to be the hardest way to win from here. If I'm ready to attack the g5 pawn next move, okay, so if the black bishop was on b8, then I can Oh, sorry, ignoring the fact I can take on a7 or b6. If the black bishop was on one of those three squares, I suppose we can't completely ignore that I would take it if it was on a7 or b6. But the point is that those three squares black can't use, because bishop e3, I'm attacking g5. Well, sorry, the b6 square they could get back. So let's ignore the b6 square, because that's also a special case where we would need to. We're going to transpose into a... that would just be a winning queen ending. Although I'm not sure I'd want to have to play that. We'll see what Stockfish does. I'm reasonably sure that's just going to be a winning queen ending. If the black bishop's on a7 or b8, that's no good. I can attack g5 and it can't be defended. If the black bishop was on one of these squares, then I can come back to e1 and attack the a5 square, and it can't be defended. All right, bishop b4 could be played, but then you just take, you win a pawn. Okay, that's clearly a win. So those squares are sort of already out of commission. Now, what if the black bishop was on a square? Well, let's say it was on one of these two squares. Okay, b6 or c7. Okay. What I would do there is I would attack the g5 pawn with bishop e3. That would force bishop d8, but remember that d8 and d2 correspond. So I'd go bishop d2 and I've won. If the black bishop was on one of these two squares, I would instead attack the a5 pawn. I'll play bishop back to e1. That forces bishop d8 and I come to d2. Okay, so all those yellow squares are also not possible for the black bishop to be on, because I would quickly force the d2 and the d8 corresponding square situation. Finally, what if the black bishop was on d6? Because if it's on d6, if I attack the g5 pawn, it goes this way. If I attack the a5 pawn, it goes that way. Okay. But remember that c7 corresponds to c3. So I would play bishop e1. The bishop would go back to c7, and then I could play bishop c3. So basically, all of these squares, we've now worked out how we can win if the black bishop's on one of them. The only one that isn't is bishop d8. Okay, so this is the most difficult one. And for this I came up with, I'm going to put my bishop on c5 onto this diagonal. Oh. Oh, that's annoying. Oh, can I come back to that? Oh, come on, Stockfish. Don't play bishop b6. Do something else. I'm just going to play bishop b6. All right, I'm going to put that back. That's about to become I think a winning queen and pawn ending. I hope we can get this there. Yeah, I think it is. I'll come back to that in a sec. Well, if not, I'm just going to have to re-record this video anyway. But so what I was hoping for here was bishop to f6, because if the black bishop leaves this diagonal, then I can play bishop to e7. I'm winning the g pawn. Okay. I can't do that after bishop b6, by the way, because bishop b3 defends it, which is a bit frustrating, although I'm sure there's maybe a winning plan there as well. I don't know. I'm not going to think about that for a sec. So that would force bishop f6. Okay. And then I would just drop my bishop back to a3. Okay. So bishop f6, I would drop my bishop back to a3, and because that would mean that black still has to stay on that diagonal, so they'd have to go back to d8. Okay, but then I could come and attack. So the black bishop's gone back to d8. Then I would come and attack the e5 pawn. Okay. If the black bishop goes to f6 to defend the e5 pawn, then So it comes back to f6, bishop c3, and black can't defend a5 and e5. You'd have to leave the defense of e5 to defend a5. Or if bishop c7, then bishop c3, and that corresponds. So I would have eventually got the corresponding squares going on. Very annoying that. Anyway, Stockfish has played this, which I think is a winning queen and pawn ending. But I might be wrong, and then I'll have to re-record the whole video because I'm not going to sort of faff around working out, hang on, so what's my winning plan from here? This is just be an extra defence that black's found. But let's hope it isn't. So if we swap and play king d5, black's going to play king b5, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 moves to queen, and black's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 moves to queen. So we queen at the same time. Oh, can we swap queens? Can we swap queens? We've got queen b5. Queen b5 check looks like a nice start. Well, that would only allow king c2 or king c3. They're the only two moves because the king goes to the a file. We just check, swap the queens, and we've won. Okay, we'd march our king across and pick off the g pawn. By the way, we don't have to go to d5. I mean, in the middle of this. In fact, if we'd gone to f5, then king c3 would be off the cards because queen e5 would skewer the king and queen. It feels better on d5 though. It feels like it's... Oh. It feels better there. Let's do king c2 first of all. We've got a way to swap queens. Queen e2 check. King has to go back to the third rank. It can't go to c3 because of the skewer. So it has to come back to b3. Queen c4 check. That's a queen swap. Great. King b2, queen d4 check, whatever. In fact, not whatever. It has to be queen d4 check. And so that's king c2. What about king... Getting all these colours off the board. So queen b5 check. What about king c3? Then we've got queen c4 check. King b2... Queen swap. King d2, queen swap. Whew! I didn't really want to do that in the middle of same coloured bishops. Obviously, probably should have worked that out before I came up with this plan, but it wasn't like I'd committed. Also, we needed to check that what I've just analysed was correct. Yeah, it's not like I've committed. I could have gone again there, couldn't I, and tried some other plan. Moving the bishop around and trying to achieve the triangulation a different way, but it turns out, fingers crossed, that black couldn't play bishop b6. Let's see. My Stockfish is... Why does it take so long on these moves? It has no moves. Ooh, probably shouldn't pre-move. Well, Stockfish isn't going to try and trick me, is it? Queen b5. Yeah, quick. And I can pre-move that. Done. Whew. Okay, and we don't need to see any more of that. So yeah, zugzwang, really powerful tool. Obviously, if there's parts of your plan that mean you're going to transpose into a king and pawn ending, maybe calculate that before you finalise your plan. But I reckon you can also just sort of move your bishop around randomly and eventually stumble upon the the corresponding square situation as well, in which case you didn't really need to watch any of this video. But I hope people liked the idea of, if you've got a bit of time, come up with a plan. Triangulation's probably going to be involved, and eventually you'll get the zugzwang.